Erev Tov, we're in Derech Hashem, starting a new parak, Chelek Aleph, parak Revi. It's very systematic, the whole Sefer, and the way he's built it up so far has been about Hashem. The first parak is about Hashem, what we know about Hashem, which we said at the time is about Smusa, what we know about Hashem of himself, not in relation to any other being before any creation. And the second chapter was about the purpose of creation. And the third one, which we just finished, was about humanity, Minha Enoshi, which is the purpose of creation. And now, just to recap just the highlights, not to go into the content of what was said, but he spoke about the issue of Bechira, Perek Gimel. He spoke about the humanity, so the subjects he spoke about were Bechira, the fact that man has free choice. After that, Guf and Neshama, that he's comprised of two halves. He's a compound that is made of a half of materialistic body and a spiritual Neshama that affect each other. And he went into Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. The fact that there's a time for avoda, a time that a person is supposed to work and strengthen his neshama over his guf and to make the right choices, and then the time of schar, the olam avoda, olam haschar. But then he went into the changes that were caused by the chet of Adam HaRishon, and that changed the world very much, both man and the world, and there's more to do for man. The work is harder, and also in quantity and quality, and also that the neshama was not able to affect the guf in the way that it was originally intended, that as the man is growing, as the neshama is doing more and more good, so then it's purifying the guf to be elevated, and that would not have necessitated death. It would have been possible to go on to eternity on an elevated level of Dveikus Hashem without the need of death. But because of the chet, so that's not possible anymore, and it's necessary to die, and then the guf is going to be cleaned out of the zuama, the filth that was put into it because of the sin, and only then is he able to reach his shleimus. Then is the neshama able to purify the guf. Also, the world became mekulkal in a way that it can be purified to become olam haba only with churban olam and then a rebuilding, a chiddush olam. That's all because of the chet. On the way, he spoke about tchias hamesim as the purpose of all. That's the time that we're going to have, the time and place that's going to be the purpose of the creation, that will be united, the guf and the neshama together, to enjoy the dveikus, the shleimus that we have to Hashem. And Olam HaNeshamos came in on the way. Before Tchias HaMesim, that at the time that the neshama and the guf are separated between death and Tchias HaMesim, so that the neshama has a place where it is able both to wait and have partial enjoyment until the guf is ready for Tchias HaMesim, and also that the neshama is gaining, not only waiting but also gaining, because the neshama has been suppressed in order not to give off its true essence while it was together with the guf, and now that it's been separated and it's no Olam HaNeshamos, it's able to be energized and let out, and with all of the greatness that it has inherently, and also that it gained because of the mitzvahs. And now then when it comes in Tchias HaMesim to be joined with the guf, it'll be able to purify the guf, that they should be able, united, to be able to be enjoying that shleimus and closeness to Hashem for eternity, going up higher and higher eternally. That was just the highlights of the previous parak. So that was humanity. But now in parak Revi, parak 4, now he's going to talk about on a more detail, Derech Prat. Before he spoke about in general, now he's going to talk about Derech Prat, the situation of man, the state of man in this world. He's opening a window on what we spoke about man's situation in this world, that he's supposed to have free choice and strengthen his neshama over his guf to make the right choice, to choose Hashem and not chomrius, not the physicality of the world. We said physicality is not to be taken to its extreme, the way we think about all kinds of indulgences, but everything that doesn't relate to Hashem is considered choshech. It's considered a darkness. We're in a world of darkness, and you have to find Hashem over here. And there's a pull, there's a lure to this darkness, and you have to make the decision of going to Hashem or being pulled into the darkness of physical, materialistic world. And now he's going to open up a window on that state of man in this world and the paths that are before him. And all this is Derech Prat. All this is going to be detailed more than he explained in the earlier chapter. So he introduces Sif Aleph. About concerning the state of man in this world, the two issues have to be discerned. It means you can talk about, distinguish two issues that have to be spoken about. And the second one is the essence of man in all of his different parts and how they're combined, and also the place in which he's placed in, and all that accompanies him, it or him. So the 2 points are man and the place. We talk about man and the world. That's how we would have said before. The etzem of man and also the world. That's the place. That's the environment that he's put into for his stay in this world. So we're going to be analyzing what man is, the essence of man, his different parts, the parts we said as the guf and the neshama, and how they're combined together, and also the environment that he's put into with all of that accompanies it. So just to map out this page alone, that was the introduction. That said, we're going to be speaking about 2 points, man and the place. And now, Siv Beis, the next paragraph is going to be about man, and then Gimel is going to be Hamakom. This is these 2 points that he introduced. That we're going to speak about Ha'adam v'Hamakom. So Siv Beis is Ha'adam and Siv Gimel is Hamakom. And after that elaboration of what he found to be the state of man in these 2 paragraphs, he's going to go on to say what man's supposed to do about that. That's going to be more or less a problem. I'll just preview that Beis and Gimel are going to sort of set out that there's an issue that has to be dealt with, because or else man is in trouble. And the way that we seem to discern man and man's situation, both of his essence and also of his environment, it seems to contradict his purpose. That's more or less that's the problem. And then when it goes on to Dalet, it'll be saying what the solution is. So if you read it, when we discern man himself, the essence of man, Hinei kvar zacharnu eichu murkov shenisrakvu bo shnei hafachim. In my guess here it says shenitchu, but I saw that sources where they bring it down from, the source seems to say shenisrakvu. The same idea, but man is a compound, a murkov, that there are 2 opposites that are blended into him. Nitchu or nisrakvu, lashon of harkava, combining. Man is combined of 2 opposites. Which you mentioned earlier, that was in the previous chapter that we just recapped, that man is made out of 2 opposites. He has a spiritual soul and he has a physical body. We said the body again doesn't just mean the bas of Adam, doesn't just mean the tangible flesh and blood, but it means everything that's physical about him that you'd call the animal part of him. So he's made up of 2 halves. This we had already. This is already just a review. We see, if we analyze, we look at man, we see that the physical part of him is more primary. It seems to be more primary in him. So the word Rishon sometimes means first, and that's in chronological order, which he's going to explain now, that in chronological order, when a man is born, so then he's very little neshama. He's mostly guf. You don't see the neshama activating too much. He's going to call it seichel soon. But but not only does it mean in chronological order, but also it's the primary essence of man seems to be more physical than neshama. That's here you can't tell. Here I would say the word Rishoni might just mean first. That when man is born and grows up, so first you see him being very physical, and only as he gets older is he able to activate his neshama more, which is going to be noticed in his seichel, in his intellect, that he's more intellectual. So it's
something that's more developed.
What's more developed?
Side doesn't need to be developed. The spiritual side, if you put a person in a closed room all his life, he'll eat and he'll grow, but it's the spiritual side of him. Unless he develops it, it's not something. So when you look at anybody and you look at them and you'll only see
the animal part.
You'll never see the spiritual part of anybody unless he talks. Even if you see a person walking the street, you wouldn't know anything spiritual about him.
Right. But I don't know if you mean just to say if you're looking at him superficially. It could mean when we analyze man, even ourselves, even if we know what he thinks about, also that when a person is first born, so then he's just like an animal, so to speak. No insult, but you don't see anything.
Older, it's just he has his mind,
and he acts differently because of that. He's
the physical side of all people.
Right. So I'm not talking
unless you get to
right. So when it says the word anachnu ro'im beinenu, I don't think it means just superficially saying. It means if you analyze it. If you analyze mankind, so you'll see that he's firstly physical. So that's what I want to question: is the word firstly or primarily? The word Rishon
doesn't come from Rosh, that it is the primary.
Right, it could be, but sometimes also means first. We find the word to mean both. So I'd like to analyze. I saw some commentaries this way, some commentaries that way. I'd like to just read a couple of lines and then try to figure out if the word Rishoni here is that he's primarily Chomri, physical, or that he's firstly. So what he's going to discuss seems to be the chronological order. So he says, we see with our eyes, as we analyze man, that the physical part of him is Rishoni. We'll leave that word open. What does Rishoni mean? V'soldos of Chazokas Bomod, and the consequences, the results of that physicality are very strong. Kihinei, miyad achar leidaso kemat kulo chomri. Right after his birth, he's almost completely physical. You don't see any intellect acting on him. Ve'ena seichel pol bo elamat. The intellect works very little. As the child gets bigger, so the intellect gets stronger and stronger, each one according to his issue. Means each person is different, but his intellect is strengthening. Even as he gets more intellectual, but his physical part of him is still dominant, mimshol, ruling, and is inclining him to his issues. It still has a pull on him, even after he's intellectual, and you could say maybe that the intellect also has what to say, but he still calls it that the chomrius is very strong. But besides the getting older and getting more seichel, the fact that he's maturing, but if he studies wisdom, he gets bigger in wisdom, and he studies it, and he strengthens himself in its ways. Means that he subjects himself to the decisions of the seichel. Then he'll be able to conquer his nature. He has a physical nature. He's calling the nature as more physical. Then he's able to conquer his nature. He doesn't let go of the reins of his desires. The word resin is rein, like R-E-I-G-N. The reins of his desires means his physicality has a lot of tavot, has a lot of desires and lures. And if he lets himself be natural, the natural state of man is not very intellectual. It's more animal based. But if he gets more and more intellectual and more wise, so then he holds on to the reins. He doesn't let his animal do what it wants. And he strengthens himself to go in the ways of the seichel. All this was a description of what we see. He didn't yet analyze it. I mean, he didn't analyze that on a deeper level. He just is going to say, so far he says, Ma she'einenu ro'im. We see with our eyes. This is when we analyze man. That's the state of affairs of man. Firstly, or primarily, we'll get to that in a second, physical. And as he gets bigger and he learns more, he gets more and more seichel, more and more intellect, and he is able to control himself. But still, the basis, the nature of man still seems to be very physical, just that you have the intellect which is controlling him. After now, he's going to go. We're going to stop here for a second, but he's going to go on now to say, "Tochiyos and Yanameila." What is the inner meaning? What is the toch? We'd call it in our language. What is the primius? He said, "This is the chitzonius. This is what we see superficially, and what is the meaning of it all?" That's when he says the word tochius, like the toch, the inside, the primius, the content. What's really happening? So that's his next subject. What is really happening? What's behind? What does this all symbolize? But before we go further, I just would like to go back to those words that the chomrius is rishoni, that the physicality is first. So what does it mean first? Does it mean first or primary? So there's a place in the Sefer later on that he refers us back to here. It's a cross reference over here. So it's in Chelik Beis, Perek Ches, Oz Gimel, 283. Chapter 2, Perek 8, number 3, which in the standard edition would be 84. And he refers us back to this paragraph. Over there, he refers us back to our subject. So I think we can glean some commentary from his own words. It's not a commentary; it's Ramchal himself. But since he's explaining it, he's referring to himself. So I think we have some hint of what he means. I'm reading over here on page 84. What?
He mentions it here.
Right. Here he's referring himself back to us.
You put a question mark in my thing.
Oh, over there you put a question mark?
You told me. I don't know. I put a question mark here.
Over there.
You must have said something. So
here we go. We already explained in Aleph Dalet, which is where we're up to now. There he doesn't use the word Rishoni. There he uses the word Sharshi. That the root, man is more rooted in his physicality.
Which makes it sound more primary.
Primary. I think that would show that the point is primary and not the issue of first. Even though he does say over here that you see that as first as he's born, but that is just to show
that's things that also would
lean to primary also. Right. So there the word Sharshi, I think it's pretty clear that when it talks about it being rooted, man is mostly rooted in physicality. That seems to say that that's his basis. Also the word of Teva, that is more Tivi, the natural state of man seems to be more physical. Let's read a little bit over there. And the ha'ara, he says that there's darkness and light. We'll talk about physicality and spirituality. We'll come a little bit more as we go on. We'll see more about the light and the dark. But he says that he's be'etzem dark. His essence, his root seems to be dark, and the light is nirkeves u'mishtatefes bo. That is something which is I don't have a good word for that. Nirkeves. When you markiv something into something else, you're integrating, grafting is something, but integrating. You're integrating I think that's a nice word. You're integrating the light into the darkness. It's not that it's equal. There's darkness. He's primarily dark, and there's an integration of the light into the darkness, and it joins in. From there comes the seichel. What we're reading over there is already going to be including what we didn't see yet. That's going to be the tochias. But I just wanted to get that one word over there. It sounds like the word shorshi, even though he uses the word here rishoni, which could mean first, but he does seem to include that the rishoni is primary or root. So you see that man seems to be primarily chamri, but there's also the seichel which can develop and control and conquer, but it's primarily chamri. That's what you see man to be. Some of the commentaries that I saw on this part, in this paragraph, they explained that it means after the sin of Adam Arishon, which we saw that was a big change. In the beginning, it was shakul. In the beginning, he was equal. There was an equal to both of them, and after the chait of Adam Arishon, after the sin of the first man, so then it was tilted towards one side. It became more and qualitative and quantitative difficult, more evil, more chamri. But I think that it's muchach that from the whole parak that's not the pshat. He's not coming here to talk about man after the sin. He's coming to talk about the essence of man, the way he was created even before the sin. After the sin, he became even more tilted. But even in the tzad, when he was still shakul, when it was still equal, he still sees that when you see the fact that man, when he's born, he's mostly physical and animal-like, and as he grows, then his intellect develops more, and he's able to control his animal-like nature. That's something that he would have seen even before the sin of Adam Arishon. And I think that's clear. I just wanted to mention it because some do say it like that, and there's a reason why he says so, because he's obviously bothered that man originally was created equal. And here he's saying equal means that the lure to physicality and spirituality is balanced. And here he seems to be saying that he's primarily physical. That's what seems to bother this author, and therefore he said that this must be after the sin. I think it's not the pshat, and we'll have to answer, how could you say that he's balanced and at the same time he's primarily physical? So we'll get to it, but I think that the way to learn the sefer would be that the word rishoni means primary. Also, you could prove it from the fact that he's chronologically, that's the way man is developed. At first he's physical without much intellect, and then the intellect gets developed in him as he goes on. That shows that he's primary, and even afterwards that he gets smart. He still says that he's controlling his nature, but it's still like he's the one who's holding on to the reins of his nature, but the nature still seems to be physical. So I think that's what the sefer seems to be saying, and we'd like to learn that it's before the sin of Adam Arishon. This is not because of the sin. Even before the sin, this is the way man is created. That's what we see when we study man. And now he's going to explain what's behind it. What's the meaning of that? What does it symbolize? What's the shorish? What's the root of this state of beings? Why is man like that? Why do we see man to have been created in the way that the physical part of him is primary and the seichel is integrated into him? The content, the inside, the pnimius of these issues that we see. So on the Rome is going back to what he said before, Rome Beinenu, that's what we see. And now he's going to say what's behind it. What's the meaning? What is the inner explanation of why we see, what's causing this? Hinehu שבמציאס החומר ועצמוסו נמצא החירוס והחושך בטבע. והוא מציאס רחוק מאוד והפקי למשהו עניין באמס לקרב אלוקל יזברך שמו ומסתפקים בקדושתו. He seems to say that so far what he spoke about doesn't have to be something Jewish even. It could be something that, not talking about God. He just spoke about that a person is physical, it's the physical part of it, the part of him, and the intellectual part of him. That's the status. But if you take that as a mashal, so to speak, that the mashal is going to be, the mashal and the nimshal are both going to be true. It's not going to be just the mashal that I invented in order to explain something, but the mashal is going to be that we are living a mashal. Our state of affairs, our state of being is also a mashal for something, and that is, or the source is that how much are we able to receive the influence of Hashem? We're a being, and Hashem is trying to be mashpia to us. He's trying to influence of His eminence to this being called man. How much are we receptive and a klikibul receptacle for that hashpah? How much? What are we? What kind of a being are we able to receive the hashpah that Hashem wants to influence us with? So he says that chomer, physicality, is murky, dark in its nature. That means that it's something which is very far and opposite from that which would be for those who approach Hashem and are davek and are cleaving to His kedusha. That means that the chomer is something which is not a conductor of Hashem's influence. You talk about a conductor. You have something which conducts electricity, something which doesn't conduct electricity. We talked about something which could conduct Hashem's hashpah. What kind of a being is susceptible to be a conductor, to be able to receive and be a receptacle for that kedusha? Chomrius is a kind of a creation that's not a conductor. It doesn't conduct, it doesn't receive Hashem's kedusha. That's what the essence of Chomrius is. And what is the neshama? HaNeshama atzma,
including the mind.
Right, the mind still would be like that also, but the mind is going to be more. The mind could be used for that also, but that's like dragging down the mind, using it just for physicality. But the mind is a kli which could be used very much to understand God and get close to Him, and that's why it's called the neshama sechlis. And if the guf is using the seichel and know how to figure out how to make a better pizza pie, so then he's using the seichel again for physicality. But the mind could be used to know Hashem. Over there, the Gemara says that the translation of the bracha atachonein, we're asking for das. I'm not mamish on the subject, but just when you ask in the Shemon Esrei and the fourth bracha, you ask for das. What are you asking for? What kind of knowledge are you asking for? Hashem, you grace man with knowledge, and you teach mankind understanding. Hashem graces knowledge. What kind of knowledge are we asking for? So there's a Farish Gemara that says what kind of dance we're asking for. Over there, there's a shortened version of Shemon Esrei. If somebody is in a situation where he can't daven the whole Shemon Esrei, so there's a thing called Tefillah Ktsara, a shortened version. It only has the first 3 brachas and the last 3 brachas in full, and the middle 12 or 13 brachas are combined into one long bracha, and it's called Havinenu. And it doesn't have each time Baruch Atah Hashem, but it says one long bracha, and it ends off Baruch Atah Hashem Shomei Tefillah, and it combines all of those petitions, all of those pleas and supplications we have in the middle brachas. Over there, how does it go? How do we translate? How do we condense the bracha of das? What do we ask for? Havinenu Hashem Elokeinu Lodas Derechecha. Give us understanding to know your ways. That's the kind of das we're asking for. Farish Gemara. You're not asking to get a good mark on your math test, and not how to figure out how to use the iPhone, and nothing to do with any other kind of das. Of course you have to have das in order to get parnasa. You ask for that in Baruch Aleinu, we should have parnasa. Whatever else you need, you have in Refuinu, you're asking for refuah. The doctor knows what he's doing, doesn't know what he's doing. You ask Hashem should give us a refuah. You're not asking for that kind of a das. What kind of das? What's the bracha that you're asking for knowledge? You're asking we should know Hashem. Havinenu Hashem Elokeinu Lodas Derechecha. Derech Hashem. Havinenu Lodas Derechecha. Derech Hashem. Your way. So the seichel is the tool to how we could comprehend Hashem, we could perceive Hashem. So it's true that seichel could be used for physicality, but its purpose is really to know Hashem through it. So far he says that the reason, the mashal, I would say the mashal, or the deeper meaning of what we see, that man is primarily physical and then the intellect is integrated into him, is that man is primarily not conducive to having the hashpah from Hashem. He doesn't receive it. He's not a receptacle that could receive the influence that Hashem wants to give us. The neshama itself is a spiritual being. So in its own, it's very pure and supreme. Means that it's a high being which should be able to receive Hashem's influence. But by entering the guf, the physical guf, means when Hashem makes man, so he combines the guf together with the neshama. So even though on its own, it is a spiritual being which should be very receptive to Hashem's influence, but the fact that it gets connected, is combined and merged together with the guf, and also histabchabo, the word literally would mean that it gets entangled in it. It's driven away and pushed away, cast aside from its natural issue. The neshama's natural issue would be to be close to Hashem, but now that it was bonded and merged together with the guf, and the guf is not that kind of a being, so now the neshama is also out of its place. It also is not in an environment that would allow it to receive the hashpah from Hashem. And it's suppressed in the guf with a outside force that's holding it in. That the guf and the neshama is stuck. The neshama cannot separate. It's trapped. It's trapped together with the guf. It can't separate. It's impossible for the neshama to leave the guf only if it's able to strengthen itself with a power stronger than that power which is holding it together. There's a force which is holding the guf and the neshama together, and the neshama cannot leave only if it has a superior force. He doesn't say what he's referring to. What is he talking about? How does the neshama leave the guf anyway? It sounds like it is possible theoretically to leave the guf. The neshama could leave the guf. We're not talking about death. That is not the point. That the neshama leaves the guf and the man dies. That's not the point. The point is that the neshama could leave the guf, it seems temporarily, and it would be able to let go of those shackles of the guf, and yes, be able to be more spiritual. So he's referring to something he says later on in what? Like a Navi, right over there, even before Navu, and Ruach HaKodesh and earlier. So in Chelek Gimel, just to give the reference, in Chelek Gimel, Perek Beis, over there, Gimel, Oz Gimel, Dalet and Hey, he speaks about how Hashem did allow the neshama to temporarily leave the guf, if you know how to do it. And over there it tells you about how it's possible for somebody on that level to do it, that he is able to release the neshama from the guf, at least parts of it, and is able to have communication with higher beings and be able to get on a higher level of spirituality. So this, I would say, is like as in a parenthesis, it's not really the subject over here, but he's saying that it's stuck, it's bonded together and it can't leave, footnote, only under certain circumstances. And he's going to elaborate about it openly over there, how it is possible for people who are on a certain level, how to separate their neshama in order to have a higher level of spiritual experience. But besides that, it seems to be just the side point. That's not his main. Not the gist of what he's saying. What's the problem? That the neshama, which is in essence very spiritual and receptive to God's influence, but now that it's bound up together with the guf, so then it can't do that. It's out of its natural environment. And being that Hashem decreed that this combination of the guf and the neshama should never separate, besides what we said before, that temporarily it could separate, that's not the point. Since they have to eternally be together, and he explains himself, why do I say eternally? Isn't there death that separates them? No, death is only a temporary thing. It's very nice how you learn this from me, and now the death is the temporary. Like really the man is always together, the guf and the neshama. There's a certain hafsaka, a little recess in between that they have to be separated, but when he talks about man, so man is eternally bond, his guf and the neshama. It's just temporarily, from death until tchias hamesim. Then he has to be pirish. The fact that that death separates the neshama from the guf, that's only temporarily until tchias hamesim. But after that, it's eternal. After tchias hamesim, they return, they rejoin, they reunite, and then they're going to both exist together for eternity in the for all eternity. So being that, so back to the subject, being the fact that the neshama and the guf are eternally together, so there's a problem because the neshama is held back from its natural state of affairs, that it should be able to connect to Hashem, and the guf is not able to. So what's going to be? That's this. It's necessary for the neshama to exert itself and strengthen itself to be able to continuously weaken the koach of the darkness of the chumrius. The chumrius is a darkness which is affecting it. It's interfering with the, how do you say today, the reception. It's interfering with the reception. That the neshama has reception, but the fact that it's connected to the guf is blocking the reception, and it's not able to get close to Hashem. So it's the neshama's only way out is going to be that it has to influence and weaken the neshama, the guf, that the guf shouldn't be so chomri, it shouldn't be such a block. And it itself should also, the guf also has to have a transition. It has to change. The guf has to become a kind of a being that also is receptive to Hashem. And it shouldn't be so dark. It shouldn't be that it's not a non-conductor. It has to become a conductor also. It's like you have to, it's the way how you take a conductive material, and if it's be able to influence, is there such a thing that you're able to? I know by a magnet you can do that, right? You make something a magnet, but talk about making something conducive to a conductor. Before it wasn't a conductor, now it is a conductor. So I don't know if we have that in this world, but it's as if that they put the metal and the wood together, and the wood is going to become also conductive of electricity. Anything that have a mushal for this? All the electricians over here? No? Okay, but that's from, if it's not a good mushal, so then scratch it. But if there has to be a thing that the neshama is able to influence the guf to purify it, that it gets rid of all its impurities, then not only impurities, but it changes its essence. Its essence is be'etzem, it's inherently not able to be conducive to Hashem's influence, and the neshama has to transform it.
There's a science project with a potato. You put a wire into a potato or something, and it can light up a potato can light up a light bulb.
Okay, maybe that's a good mushal. Maybe that's a good mushal.
So you see that there's
The potato becomes a conductor.
it becomes a conductor.
Yeah, because it's a liquid already. It has liquid in it already.
Organic, anything is organic.
And again, okay, it has there already. It's already.
Even the ground.
Okay.
So we see, but it exists within the.
Right, here it doesn't. Here it has to transform it. Here it doesn't have only impurities that are blocking it or something. That it's be'etzem. It's be'etzem not able, and the neshama has to transform it. And that's a chiddush that the neshama could transform the guf.
Metal with the magnet.
As far as the magnetic field,
But you can
influence the other one
and magnetize a piece of metal.
Right.
And then after the neshama the guf is transformed, it's able to be elevated together with the neshama and be illuminated with the supreme light. It means the light that Hashem is influencing. In the beginning, on the contrary, in the beginning the guf was bringing down the neshama, that it was holding back the neshama from being able to be receptacle of Hashem's influence. But the neshama is able to transform the guf on the contrary, that the guf should become a receptacle that it should be able to. They can't remain together, each one on its own. They affect each other. Either the guf brings down the neshama, or the neshama is able to bring up the guf. So I think that he already explained, well, he's explaining the tochiyos inyan hazeh. Maybe let's finish a little bit more. Man in this world is in a situation where the physical part of him is very strong. Man, the physicality being cloudy and dark, so man is in a great darkness. Is very far from what he's supposed to be. That's not what man's supposed to be. Man's supposed to be cleaving to God. The fact that he's in a situation where he's dark and not able to receive that light of Hashem, that's not the way it's supposed to be. The purpose of man is that he should be cleaving to Hashem. That's what man has to pay his attention to, put his exertion to, in order to strengthen his purposes. His effort should be to strengthen his neshama over the koach of his physicality, to improve his situation, in order to elevate himself to the amount that is proper, that he's supposed to. So this seems to be the keneged, the tochiyos, the inyan hazeh. The fact that we see man is primarily physical and very little intellect, and as he gets older, the intellect is more integrated and able to affect the rest of the guf. That's the point. The point is talking about really what man is that he's chashuch, he's chomri chashuch, which means he's not receptive of Hashem, and that spirituality of Hashem affecting him could be changed. It could be integrated into his physicality. So I think when he talks about ma she'anachnu ro'im, and then the tochiyos inyan hazeh, ma she'anachnu ro'im is you see physicality, chomer and seichel, but later on when he translates it, the tochiyos inyan hazeh, he talks about the choshech and the ha'ora. This I saw from Rav Spinner. He's a pirush on these forms, Shom Derech Hashem, and he says that the Ramchal here is translating what you'd say the philosophical language into the Kabbalah language, in a sense. Means the Rambam in the Morning of Buchum, when he speaks about this state of man, he talks about Chomer and Seichel, that there's physicality and there's intellect. That's how he sees man. How a philosopher would see man. That there's the animal, physical part of him that has alert to all kinds of physical indulgences, and then you have the Seichel, the intellect, which is able to higher.
The intellect was also physical.
Yes. Okay. So at first I spoke like a philosopher. This is how Aristotle would speak, and he would see a shleimus in the seichel alone, not the way I spoke. But now he's translating it into the point of choshech, ha'ora and choshech, and the point here is Hashem's influence, the darkness, the physicality. It's true. You could talk about physicality on an Aristotle outlook also, that there's an animal and there's a human being who's more intellectual. But we would say that's all physical. We would look at Aristotle and say everything that he's talking about is all physical. Even his intellect is also used just for physicality, the way I said it before. Here he's translating it, that when we talk about the seichel is not just seichel. The seichel is that there's the ha'ora, there's an illumination that Hashem is able to influence man. But he's made in a way that primarily he's not yet. The guf is not that. The guf is a being which is not receptive of God's influence, and the ha'ora, the illumination, is integrated into it, and it's able to transform in a way that it does become receptive. The mashal would be, I think we can use it as a mashal. It's true. It's a fact of existence that man is first very unintellectual and just animal-like, and then as he gets older, he gets more and more intellectual, and he's able to control his physical animal-like being. That's even a goy, and even a philosopher would say it like that. But now he's saying, you know what's behind all this? That man is a creation which is not receptive of God's influence. That's the physical part of him, we're saying. That's what translating that's the physicality. And or the light is the ability, is a light, Hashem's light. Hashem is trying to influence us with His influence, and if we're able to receive that, that's going to be the ha'ora. That's the integration of the light into the darkness. It means, that's the one more time, I'll maybe try to get it a little clearer for myself, and if it helps. When Aristotle would look at a human being, he would see an animal, and he would see that a man has certain aspects like an animal. But then he sees intellect. He says man has, besides everything else that the donkey has, man also has all that. Plus he also has an intellect. So the difference between a man and a donkey is the intellect. So he has to become more intellectual. That's Aristotle's picture of human being. The more that you're going to use your intellect, become an astronomer, you become a scientist, you become a mathematician, all that is making you more human. Because the whole difference between a human and a donkey is the fact that he has intellect. So you're being more human. But take that a step further. All that is, even that mathematics and astronomy also is a physicality, as far as we're concerned. Because physical in our sense is not just going to mean animal-like. That's not going to be the definition of physical, that it's just animal-like. That's not the point. The point is that is he able to connect to Hashem? The ability, the human part of man is not just that he has intellect. That's just a more sophisticated animal, that he has intellect. That's not the point. The point is that, like the Rinsil Shalom says, what is shleimus of man? What is the perfection of man? Aristotle would say the perfection of man is intellect. That's a shleimus, to become a seichel hapoyel, seichel nivdal, whatever he uses over there. That man, the greatness of man is that he's intellectual. But the Ramchal is coming to exclude lafuke from Aristotle, and he's saying that it's not the real shleimus of man. Shleimus hamid raket vekes bois barach. The connection to Hashem, that's what man is. That's true, yes, seichel. The seichel is going to be a tool how to get to that. But the shleimus of man is not his intellect. The shleimus of man is his closeness to Hashem. So now when you talk about the closeness, the connection, the dveikus, that's what man is. So when you translate the mashal, so to speak, of the chomer and the seichel, the physicality, the animal base-like part of man, in contrast to his intellect, now we're going to understand it on a Jewish level, on the reality level, that it's not just a question of an animal that's not intellectual and a man who's intellectual. It's a question about a being who's not connected to Hashem and not able to be connected to Hashem. That's the animal part of him. The base-like part of man is that he's not able to connect to Hashem. But then there's the ability, yes, to become connected to Hashem. That's the shleimus of man. And that's the neshama. Talk about the seichel. Here's talking about the neshama and the guf. The neshama is able to transform the guf to be able to be a being which is receptive of Hashem. But
because he has the physical seichel.
He'll use the seichel. The neshama is going to use the seichel in order to get closer to Hashem and be able to become that kind of a being that does the mitzvahs and whatever is going to make him more. But I'm giving away that. I shouldn't have said that. That's going to be the next page. But he has to do whatever he has to do. You're saying to use the seichel. That's true, and we'll see more what he's going to do, how he's going to transform himself. But the point being that man's state, his natural state, is one where he's not able to connect to Hashem. And the point is, just like we see in the physical world, that a man becomes more intellectual and he integrates the seichel into his physicality, here he's going to be integrating his neshama into his guf in the way that he's going to transform it to become a being which is conductive, is receptive of Hashem's hashpah. But the way that he said that this is primarily, that means that's what it starts off with, and that's what he has to transform. Do we have any explanation to reconcile this with what he said earlier, that they're both equal? That the neshama and the guf both have an equal pull. We had a contradiction before. In the previous parak he says that before the sin of Adam Arishon, the pull to evil and good was on an equal shakul basis just afterwards, after the sin. So then he tilted the scale and he made it more difficult, quantitative, qualitative. But originally man was on an equal basis. And here he seems to say that there's primarily chomri. Is that a contradiction? Primarily physical, and then the seichel is integrated into it. Does that contradict? So he's saying it doesn't contradict. The way it comes out now, it's contradicting. He's made chomri. He's made physical, meaning in a way that he's chashuch, he's darkened, he's not able to receive Hashem. Now he has the choice of becoming more transformed. That issue now, where the state of affairs now, he's mainly chomri, he's mainly physical, mean physical, darkened, he's a dark chashuch. How does he call it? He calls it achor and chashuch. That's the essence of his being. And now he has a choice to make himself transformed or not to make himself transformed. That could be on an equal level. The choice that the two paths that he's in a fork in the road, that could be equal to each one. But that doesn't exclude or preclude that man's essence starts off first being chashuch, dark. His job is to transform himself. In the choice of transforming himself or not, he has equal paths. So it's not a contradiction.
What are you asking?
I'm answering.
But he already said that was before the sin.
I'm talking about before. We're still talking about before the sin.
Now we're talking about
I think it's pasha that the Sefer is talking about before the sin. This is before the sin.
I thought this was already in Yana Olam Atikon.
No, this is man. And I think he's going to say so. Man for day one. I think it's pretty clear that he's coming to explain the matzav of man, not because of the sin. I saw some of Hashem say what you're saying, that he's talking about man after the sin, but I think it's clear from the whole parak that's not the subject. Subject is what the essence of man is. So he's saying the essence of man is chomri, which he has to transform. And before that he said that the choice is the equal choice. It's equal choice. Is he going to transform himself or not?
Yeah, but it's not really, because before the Chomi came into existence...
Before what came into existence?
Before he came into existence. His neshama already existed. And his neshama was being sent down into the chumri in order that it had...
I'm not sure. When Hashem created man, so he created both. He created the neshama and the guf. I don't know time-wise that Hashem created the neshama before the guf. I don't know a source for that. Man is comprised of two halves.
The neshama existed because it was within...
Although the neshama is from the guf. The neshama is from the guf.
There's a creation. The neshama is a creation. The neshama is not God. We said it many times. The neshama is not God. So the neshama is a creation. What is the purpose of this neshama being created? This is man. That's what man is.
But they came into, although it said that the physical was formed, but the physical only came into existence once the neshama was blown into it. So
that's when he got life. But on day 6 of creation, man was created. I think that both the neshama and the guf were created on that day. Maybe I'm making a mistake, but I don't know differently.
Mashma that they were, and they're 50. They basically both had the same koichos within the creation of the man.
Yes, but if we say that man, when he's created, the neshama's job is to transform the guf. The point is going to be how much is he going to transform
up until a certain point, but at the time that the physicality is created, when
the neshama was blown into man,
the pula of man started at one time 50-50 between.
Yeah, but the pula of man, the way you said it, the pula of man is 50-50. What's the pula of man? That he should purify the guf. But that's the pula of man already. But what is man? Man is primarily first chomri. The choice of his action now is 50-50.
The chomri wouldn't exist if the neshama wasn't within it
True.
at all time. So it obviously is, although we don't see it and it doesn't seem.
Yeah, but it's definitely there. The question is, which is there equal? Is there something wrong to say that man is primarily chomri and the neshama is integrated into it in order to purify it? I think it's not a contradiction. That koach that the neshama has, that the guf has a pull and the neshama has a pull, that's equal. But what is the point that we're talking about? We're talking about how much the neshama is going to purify the guf. I think if we learn this way, then it's not a contradiction, the 2 points. Maybe it's just a start this time. We'll try to continue next time again, Be'ez Hashem. But I think that that's a first reading of this chapter. And to be continued, Be'ez Hashem. Yashikah.